So you're gonna be here for? I thought you did. She over there. Perfect. Cool. So just a few slides. And if you a few slides, it's up to you. But good morning, and welcome to Tech Talk Thursday. We're going to get started in just a few minutes as we finish getting set up with our incredible speaker and also with the founder and executive director of our cybersecurity center. I'm Charles Elliott. I'm the vice president of information technology and auxiliary services here at the college. And I just can't wait to get started today because I'm excited about today as Brother Perry comes to bring us information on IoT. And he'll explain what that is, and how it affects our lives. I also want to take a personal privilege and say Happy Founders Day to the brothers of Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated as we celebrate 111 years of excellence. And his brother Perry is also a member of the fraternity as well as myself. So give us a few minutes and we'll get started. Stay tuned and you're going to enjoy yourself. Thank you. Good morning. We're going to get started again. My name is Charles G. Elliott Sr. the Vice President of Information Technology and Auxiliary Services here at the college, where I'm responsible for IT, food service, and security. So just wanted to thank you for joining in with us on our Tech Talk Thursday that we do every fourth Thursday, but we made an adjustment this time because of this particular day that this represents for the men of Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated as we celebrate 111 years of excellence today. And also our speaker is also a member of Omega. I bring you greetings on behalf of our 13th president, Dr. Vernell Bennett Fairs, to the LeMoyne-Owen College as we continue to make magic here. So we're going to get started, and just wanted to introduce you to the college and introduce you to our topic, which is the Internet of Things, which represents something that affects our lives on a daily basis. And Mr. Perry is going to discuss those things with us today. But as we get started, I want to bring up founder and executive director of the Cybersecurity Center here, that we are certified by the National Security Agency and the Department of Homeland Security, Dr. Denise Fairby. She should share some nuggets about the center and allow you to take a glimpse into who we are at the college and what we're going and the path that we're on, and when it comes to information technology and cybersecurity. Dr. Fairby.
As Mr. Elliott just stated, I am the founder and executive director for the Center for Cybersecurity here at LeMoyne-Owen College. We were founded, actually designated by the NSA and DHS in 2019, September 21st, 2019. We were founded in 2016, around August. During our time here at the college, as part of our mission is to introduce cybersecurity across all facets of life. That includes to the students that are here at LOC, and also the community and the other individuals and partners and so forth in the area. We not only work to teach and have a curriculum in reference to cybersecurity, specifically in computer science. Our computer science area is cybersecurity centric. That includes data analytics. That includes criminal justice, our general cyber information assurance and cyber defense, along with network administration and design. We are also a interdisciplinary center, so we work with criminal justice in our education department in our K-12 endeavors, along with computer science as a general basis in the founding organization area. As part of our efforts here at LeMoyne-Owen College, we work in the community and do community engagements with organizations such as Black Girls Code, Code Crew, Black Tech Futures, Public Interest Technology University Network, along with Memphis City and Memphis Shelby County Schools. Let me get that corrected. Memphis Shelby County Schools. We do summer camps along with doing community engagement initiatives. During these summer camps, we teach kids how to code. We teach adults how to code. We also cover information on how to have good cyber hygiene, how to protect yourselves when you are online, and how to have an understanding that cybersecurity is a part of all facets of life. You could be working in art, doing theater, and there are aspects of cybersecurity that exist in those areas. That's in reference to your transactions, that's in reference to the copyright of your material. It branches all avenues. The major thing that I want you to be left with here in reference to the Center for Cybersecurity is to understand that we are here to help you. We're here to talk about your area, to talk with you in reference to your area and how cybersecurity is in reference to it. And we're here to serve the community, whether it's teaching students and them graduating with a degree or to work in community engagement. The main thing is that we're here for the community. Come see us, learn about us, work with us, and help to change the face of 38126. Thank you. Have a good day. And let me bring up Mr. Charles Elliott.
Let me get the mic. I just wanted to see if there were any questions. In fact, Dr. Fairby, don't go anywhere because there's a couple of things I want you to explain to the. Come on back up. You mentioned a couple of things that I think are terms that many people don't know what they are, and I want you to explain that to folks, particularly with cyber hygiene and what that means, and how the cybersecurity center will be in the future great for LeMoyne.
Good cyber hygiene means just like you teach little children about stranger danger. The stranger danger is no longer someone walking up to you that and a person that you don't know. The stranger danger is on your phone, it's on your computer, it's people that send you emails and call you on the phone to get your personal information. And so this is where you have to understand that all of this technology that we use has to be maintained, and we actually have to have a sense of what is good, a sense of self-preservation in a certain way when it comes to stranger danger on the computer. And that's what we mean by good cyber hygiene, making sure that you use things that actually protect you, such as firewalls and VPNs when you're communicating or you're traveling, using antivirus to make sure that you don't get malware or ransomware on your computer. And you've probably seen a lot of news in reference to ransomware. October was the cybersecurity awareness month, and a lot of students on campus during that month, we talked about various aspects of cybersecurity. And one of the major things was in reference to ransomware. This is where people actually put some sort of software or malware onto your computer that encrypts all of your data, where you are unable to conduct business, or businesses are unable to conduct business. And they expect you to pay a fee, preferably in Bitcoin, in order to get your information back, or they're going to publicize it across the internet. And this is something that we have to be aware of and understand the dangers. And as I said before, the stranger danger in reference to technology and making sure that we have good cyber hygiene. Going forward, the Center for Cybersecurity is going to be crucial in cyber education and awareness and involvement, because we can't have good cyber hygiene without educating you all and our students and the rest of the community about the dangers that are out there. But that doesn't mean that you should not use technology. That just means that you should be aware of how technology can be misused and how it can affect you. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Farabee. And as we prepare to bring up our speaker, just wanted to make sure that particularly students on the campus, that we are practicing what we call NIST principles. These principles allow us now to protect the institution, and we need your help. So if you see an email that has a pink line across it, it means an external email from someone outside of the college. Always be cognizant of who that person is, because if you click on the wrong link, it can cause problems for the entire institution. What we do know statistically is that most of our issues don't happen from outside, they happen from inside. Some say as much as low as 80%, and some say as much as 90% of cybersecurity issues happen because of someone inside. FedEx, and Mr. Perry can speak to that, took a hit, but it was not because of outside, because they had good security. It's because someone on the inside allowed a perpetrator to come in. Now, for our speaker, I'm going to bring up Charles Elliott Jr. To introduce our speaker. He is the Basileus, or if you know, the president of Chi Psi chapter of the Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated here on the campus.
Good evening. Well, good morning still. Like he said, I'm Charles Elliott Jr., the chapter boss list at CASA here. Uh, Happy Founders Day to all the brothers of Omega Psi Phi fraternity and myself. Thank you. But Mr. Anthony Perry, he's the director of OT and IoT securities at FedEx Services. Anthony joined FedEx in 1994 as an associate engineer in the voice engineering group supporting customer service operations. Since then, he has held several positions in customer service, network engineering, and information security within FedEx. As a technology leader, Anthony led the global segmentation program, which strengthened FedEx's data center. Which strengthened FedEx's data center design and its enhanced security controls for the FedEx Enterprise Network. Most recently, he led the effort to streamline the firewall policy requirements process to facilitate the migration of major applications to the enterprise data centers. Anthony is passionate on fulfilling purple promise, continuous improvement, and operational excellence. Currently, Anthony is the director of OT IoT security team, where securing the operational technologies and IoT environments at FedEx is the focus of his team. Anthony is a recipient of the prestigious 5-star award and has received 6 IT Hall of Fame awards. Wow. He has a bachelor's degree in electrical engineering technology from Southern Polytechnic State University and an MBA from the University of Memphis. He lives in Memphis with his wife, Kenna, and an instructional facilitator for Shelby County Schools. Did I say her name right? Keena? Keena, I'm sorry. Keena. And son, sorry. So he lives in Memphis with his wife, Keena, and an instructional facilitator for Shelby County Schools and sons, AJ, Keenan, and Christian. Anthony and his family are strong supporters of Special Olympics of the Mid-South, where he serves as board chair. Anthony is a member of Omega Psi Phi Fraternity, Incorporated, Chi Gamma Gamma, and he crossed in spring of '92. Rude. All right, so now introducing to you, Brother Anthony Perry.
Is that better? Good morning. And first of all, I would like to thank Charles and LeMoyne-Owen for giving me the opportunity to be here. This is my second time getting an opportunity to speak at LeMoyne, and I would be remiss if I didn't mention my wife, Keena Perry, some might know as Keena Rubin, who attended here. And we just really love and appreciate LeMoyne-Owen and what it's doing for our community. Second of all, to all my brothers of Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated, happy Founders Day. Enjoy your day. So now with that, let's get to our topic of today. And as best we can, everyone, this needs to be interactive. So definitely interested in educating, making sure you walk away from here understanding the elements of OT and IoT security. So Charles really spoke about IoT, but I'm going to expand it just a little bit in some of the things that I do around OT. So we can go ahead and go to the next slide. So we'll do a quick introduction, and then of me, which you've heard most of it. We'll talk about the current state of cybersecurity, some of the things you know, some of the things you might not know, some of the things that you take. I'm trying to balance today between what we do in our personal lives and what happens on a corporate perspective. So definitely want to get that balance there. And some of the challenges and opportunities we have in some of these areas. So I definitely want to stress, if you have questions, please ask. Next slide, please. All right, so a little bit about me. You already heard BS, Electrical Engineering Technology, MBA, University of Memphis. Started in FedEx back in 1994 and moved to Memphis in 1994 from Georgia. And ironically, not only is it Founders Day, but it is also my 25-year anniversary for my second time at FedEx. I stayed for 3 years, left for 5 months, came back, and today is 25 years ago I came back. So great day. And I have been married for 24 years to my lovely wife, Keena, who's in the audience, and currently the director of OT IoT at FedEx. Okay. Next slide. So Internet of Things. We're going to talk a little bit today about Internet of Things. When we think about Internet of Things, what are they? Typically think of devices, not as much as computers, but smaller devices that connect to the internet for different purposes that we have. A typical example is what you have at home. How many have TVs that are connected to the internet, what we call smart TVs? Of course, your phones. How many have an Alexa, Google, something like that, a Fire Stick? When you look at it, those types of technologies have become mainstay. For those of us that have kids, I don't even know if my kids really know how to use cable anymore. They really don't. They don't. They have TVs that are smart connected to the internet, and that's all they need. They don't really even need a computer anymore. All they need is their phone, and they can stream and do anything. So detention or punishment in the room, go to your room, doesn't work anymore because they're as connected as anyone else. So when we look at this thing, there's all this connectivity to the internet that we're doing, but do understand that with that comes challenges. So my job is around computer security. That's what I do for FedEx. But even in our home lives today, security of our computer assets is important. We need to understand that not only from a financial perspective, from a privacy perspective, from a physical security perspective, we need to understand what comes with that. So we're going to talk a little bit about Internet of Things, and we're also going to talk about a corporate perspective. So one of the things that we do from a corporation is this thing called OT security, or operational technologies. A simple way to describe that is typically today when you use a computer, what are you doing? The majority of us are manipulating information. Quite simply. I know that's simple, but the majority of the time you're manipulating information, whether it's a spreadsheet, PowerPoint presentation, Word document, sending an email, you're simply manipulating information. Now, when we start talking about OT or operational technologies, the difference is instead of manipulating data or information, we are using computer resources to do something physical, to move something physical. So almost think of a computer used to control a robot, or a computer used to control something that moves. So a little plug for FedEx and what I do for FedEx. One of the things that we do that's very important to FedEx, for anybody that's been out there and know anything about us, which I've learned that most people have worked at FedEx in the hub before in Memphis, the movement of the packages. As they move, and the diverters, and the dimensioners, the things that can read and scan and dynamically move boxes and move packages. We don't sort millions of packages a night in Memphis all by hand. There's a lot of technology there. So my main job at FedEx is making sure that those processes can take place. So as we think about cybersecurity and cyber criminals, it's pretty important. Think about it. When this whole thing started, cyber criminals were really interested in what? Money. I want to get money out of your account. Okay, they're interested in that. All technology vendors and suppliers all start working on that, trying to make it better, right? Do we have much of a problem with that? We still have problems with that, but not as bad as we used to from all the security. Next, there's security of information. So your money assets are good, but having that personal information about you is important for them also, because that gives them another mechanisms to either get money from you or open new bank accounts, get loans, apply for things, cars, etc. So, okay, moving on from what we worry about from an industrial perspective and a business perspective, we've got hacktivists. There are activists that decide to use hackers. There are people there's nation states, some of the nations that we upset some of our biggest adversaries, as in Russia and China, what they are interested in doing, they're not interested in really stealing money. They're not that much interested in you. They're interested in causing impact. So I'll give you an example. FedEx. What if I could stop the hub from processing packages for one night? Can you imagine? So FedEx is considered critical infrastructure. So what if that nightmare scenario? Or, next slide, please. I'll give you a couple of other nightmare scenarios that really occurred. There was an attack on the city of Atlanta. I think I was looking at the news this morning, and they just had a cyber attack for Tipton County. Tipton County has some issues, but municipalities and school systems are now starting to have problems with ransomware and people attacking them. But from a major perspective, if you remember, what was it, a year and a half ago, the Colonial Pipeline hack or ransomware incident that pretty much made the whole fuel supply, gasoline supply for the whole East Coast questionable about whether it was, people lining up for gas and whether gas was going to be available. So you see the impact of that. JBS, you might not have heard much of this. They're like one of the largest meat packers in the US. They were hit with a ransomware attack, caused major impact. So that's just two examples of where ransomware, cybersecurity, bad actors cause potentially major impact to us, right? From a fuel, gas, transportation, from a food perspective. So you can imagine what would happen with things like power generation, medical. So you can imagine the impact. So next slide. And then you've got innovation. Here you've got the example of Roxo with FedEx and what we were doing from a robotics perspective, but you've got talks about drones, automation, all kind of things like that. So companies are really trying to get into this thing with automation, that type of technology. Once again, technology that's not all in one place, requires remote connectivity, requires cellular type connectivity, things such as that. Next slide. This is just an example of some other things that have occurred. So you'll see it starting back in 2010 when we had the whole situation with the nation states in Iran, Stuxnet, where their nuclear program, the suspicion is that the Israelis used a computer virus that went in on a USB stick from a vendor and pretty much shut down their nuclear program. All the way up to where we're today. And this goes on and on and on all the time around things that occur where we got individuals, bad actors, nation states affecting us, to the point that pretty sure now someone could actually kill somebody from an OT perspective. So when you look at FedEx and how critical some of those systems are, imagine things that you could do to could actually harm a person or kill them. Simple as, hey, a red light. Imagine your stoplight at a four-way, very busy intersections. What if I made all the lights go green? How much confidence do you have when you see that light green? You're good. So these are, unfortunately, in my job, part of us is to think of nightmare type scenarios. So I'll give an example of that when the whole pandemic thing we had pandemic planning, we had planned for pandemic. I remember talking to my wife saying, hey, this is a scenario that might happen. We do a lot of, I guess you could call it gaming, but understanding what's potentially the worst case that could happen. So next slide, please. This really looks at our home. And as I was talking earlier about some of the things, not only is access an issue with Internet of Things, also privacy. So like I said, people used to think that it was all about money, but I think you want your privacy. I think you want, so for example, if I could get access to my Ring camera, a person's Ring camera, can I tell what your habits are when you're there and when you're not there? I also have something, since I have teenage kids that always leave the garage door open. I have a little thing that I can use on my phone and open my garage door. I mean, people have alarm systems that you can cut on and off. So, and thermostats and cameras within your home and devices. So when you think about that, that's your privacy. That is your privacy. And that is the technology. The thing that knows the most about you, your phone. You look at it and it's convenient when you get in your car in the morning, it's like 19 miles to work and traffic is light. But it's like, wow, if this phone knows that, how many other people know that? How often are you without your phone or your watch? Your watch that looks at everything you do and knows your heart rate and everything about you. So understand these technologies, be careful with them. 1 in 2 fear their health records will be misused by cyber criminals. 64% feel confident in the ability to control Internet of Things. I don't know about that. There's an estimate of 5 devices in your house that is connected to the internet, and that might be low by today's standard. 93% of people think that hacking of Internet of Things is criminal, burglary. 65% fear Internet of Things devices may be hacked. And 89% of employees with access to personal information, with companies that have access to personal information, want to assure that the people are certified. Because like I said, it used to be money, now it's information. So what information can I get about you as an individual, and how can I use that potentially against you? So just make sure that, let's talk a little bit about what do we do at home with our IoT devices, with our internet connected devices. How do we keep them safe? How do we make sure we're safe? What ideas that we have? To the audience, or Charles, I think you can monitor anybody online. Any ideas? I'll start with an easy one. Wireless networks. Now, everybody acts like their wireless network is, I don't know, just like passing out candy, like grandma passing out candy at Christmas. Hey, you need the password? You come over, you want the password to my internet? You want to be able to get on my network? What is that? From an internet and a network perspective, it's like giving you the keys to my house. Do I have to actually be in your house to access that network? No. I could be sitting out at the curb at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning or further away. If I break into your computer, what can I get? How hard is it to break into your computer? So the network is the gateway. So I would advise you, for whatever router, whatever service you have, to make sure that's updated. I would also advise you to change that password every so often, especially those of us who have kids. Because you know, you got the family over, whatever, you got little cousin JoJo and cousin Emily, and they, hey, how do I get my iPad online? Here you go. Now go away, go play. But do understand that inherent risk that every person that you give that access has access to your network. And when we first started doing wireless security, people used to ask, so what? I don't care if they have access. So what if they break into my house from a network perspective? Here's the other thing. Well, your wireless network, you don't really control the boundaries of it. What if I am a pedophile and I like looking at images, and I come sit outside your house and I do that work from my car? You'll probably get a visit from somebody, like a 3-letter federal entity, like, hey, this is what I see coming from your network, your house. Explain that. So do understand that not only is it somebody taking something from you, it's also sometimes somebody doing something from your access that makes it look like it's you. So there's a wireless part. Then there's also,
Mr. Perry, I have a question.
sure.
Based on the fact that we just come out of the pandemic, which many people had to go home to work, how do we now, with so many people working from home still remotely, and to the point you're making, how do we have more security? I know not giving it to JoJo and Emily, but what other things can we do?
I think as far as when it comes to work, this is me. Separate that from personal. Make that separation as best you can. If you have enough knowledge, I would even make separate networks, especially those of us who have kids, because nobody wants to. We've had instances in the corporate world where, hey, these things have occurred. We see these things happening, and coming to find out, well, somebody had a corporate asset and they let their kids access it. So definitely that segmentation, depending on your company policy, make your footprint as small as possible. If they don't require you to have your PC on when after hours to be able to patch it or anything, I would say definitely disconnect it and cut it off, if at all possible. So you want to make your footprint as small as possible, and just good hygiene. And that's, you understand the area that you have your computer in. Another strange thing that's come up here lately, the devices like the Alexas and the Googles. If you're doing some personal or corporate work that's pretty confidential, you might be talking about numbers or talking about things, you might not want to do it around those devices. You might not want to do it around those devices. For your cameras, that everything has a camera, you might want to cover up those cameras. Do you really trust that because that light's on, that camera's not on? Do you really trust that the device is not listening? I don't know. Some people say, hey, I start talking about chocolate chip cookies and then I go on my computer and I start seeing ads for chocolate chip cookies. Just saying, just make sure, be sensible about conducting business around those type devices also. Thank you, Mr. Elliott. All right, next slide. A quote, most IoT devices that lack security by design simply pass the security responsibility to the consumer, thus treating the customers as techno crash test dummies. Typical example of this, the easiest thing that we do from a security perspective, if I wanted to hack your system, is starting to look at default passwords. So your device that comes with a password, it might be username admin. The default password is password. Now, the majority of these devices don't require you to change that, ever. So if you're like me, you tear the package open, plug it in, click, 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 cut it on. If it works, that's it. They need to make that process where it's required to change that password before the device will work. But unfortunately, most of the devices, you put them on, they work. You know, we really get frustrated when, you know, we get security systems that work. Like, for example, for those of us who have Apple, all the things where now it'll even tell you the location that somebody tried to log onto your account. Here's the location. Is this you? It's a lot. But I can tell you this. We went through this personally. When somebody steals your checks and writes checks like all over the country, it puts a different perspective on you. I'll never forget when that occurred to us. And then you go and you try to purchase something and they don't even ask you for your ID when you're writing a check. And it's like, wow, I see how these criminals can get away with buying all kind of stuff with my checks all over the country because people are not following the procedures. Default passwords, critical. Making sure you update your devices, critical. So I'm not trying to scare you and saying that you have to be security experts, but I am saying educate yourself a little bit about these things and be aware, because you do have these services running at your house. And they are a convenience, but at the same time, realize what can come with that. Next slide. So a little bit about how we fix the problem. So this slide here we'll go over in a little bit, but it probably goes to both industrial, which is corporate, and personal. But you see what number one is: no default passwords. No default password. So anything that you have to have a password management is extremely difficult, especially as we get older and get less hair, or it turns gray, whatever we've got left, it gets hard. And everything, when you look at the rules, everything is supposed to have a different password. Humanly impossible for some of them. So there are some services out there that I would advise you to use that will keep your passwords depending on the type of device you have. Do a little research there. Those are good things to do. And then a lot of the operating systems like Windows have things now that will give strong passwords. Be aware of that. But extremely, along with that, other than default passwords, I'll say the other password that is extremely important: email. Be very careful with that, because all the password resets and everything are by email, most of them. So understand that. So be very diligent with that. Next is implement a vulnerability disclosure policy. For those of us in corporate, what that means is if a company is hacked or they have a vulnerability, they need to let us know. They can't sit here and hide it. They need to let us know as quickly as possible so we can, they have to fix it, or we can turn the device off. All right? Keep software updated. See it on your phones all the time. You see it on your computers. Make sure they're updated. There's these things that we call 0 days. So when we have a typical security problem, somebody found the problem, let's say on Windows. They let Microsoft know, Microsoft fixed it, and they put out a patch for it, right? We patch, good. There's these concepts, or not a concept, it's actually a thing called 0 days. And this is the worst thing ever for us in the computer security industry, because that's a vulnerability that somebody found out that got manipulated, let's say before Microsoft even knew it. So before they know it, it's in the wild. And people are using it to exploit people's computers. So those 0 day threats, 0 day meaning we have 0 days to prepare. It's out. Here are the things that are vulnerable. And until the vendor makes a patch, you're on your own. So you'll see a lot of attention to those things. In fact, most of the time, if there's a 0 day type event for a major operating systems like Windows, you'll probably even hear it on the news, on the 6 o'clock news. As soon as they have an update, you need to update now. You've seen some of those where it's very important. All right. Number 4, securely store credentials and sensitive data. So just like you don't leave papers laying around on your coffee table when you have company over with your social security number, be careful who's using your computer and what they're doing. Make sure your passwords are securely managed. It's very important. Number 5, communicate securely. I think we know what that means too, as in as we're communicating information in email and things like that, be careful. I know people that do the tax preparation and things like that, where they've got documents going back and forth in email. How many times have you mistyped an email and sent it to the wrong person? Can you imagine that with your tax return or some critical information? Just be careful of how you do that. Minimize exposed attack surfaces. All that's saying is that, for example, your social security card. Used to be we needed to have it in our wallet. We probably don't need to have it in our wallet anymore. You probably know it by heart, and you probably you don't need the card anymore. So that's something that minimizing your attack surfaces, that's one less place you need to be worried about. So if somebody steals your wallet, you won't be like, oh, they got this, this, and this. All right. The rest of these are somewhat corporate, but one of the other things that's catching on big also is for companies, a lot of requirement for them to delete your personal data. So let's say you were with Allstate Insurance and then you changed over to Farm Bureau. Well, Allstate still has your information, requiring them to delete it and how fast they delete it. And as we talk about even internationally, one of the things that's challenging us today is with that data with China. They're coming up with a policy that says all the data from Chinese people needs to stay in China. So where we big companies have big data centers and bring everything back to, for example, our big data centers here in the US, they're like, no, if it's involving a Chinese citizen, the data needs to be here. So you can imagine the kind of hoops that companies are jumping through for that. All right, next slide. So with that, I'm close to the end. We've got about 15 minutes. I do want to put a plug in around, since this is very student oriented, around technology-based careers, and especially information security. That's worked well for me for the last 20 years, where a lot of the things when I started 20 years ago didn't exist. But computer security is a great field. You guys have a great program here. Personally know Dr. Farabee. I worked at FedEx with her before. The things she's doing is quite amazing for a school of your size.
Mr. Perry, I have some questions from the internet, if you
Sure.
don't mind.
Sure.
Been interactive. One person asks, I was just asked by a stranger for my Cash App for a blessing. How is this a hackable risk?
I would tell you this. I would not don't deal with those apps and such unless you know and have high confidence in the person that you're dealing with. Hackable, and how could that be a risk? I think once again, the biggest thing I'll say, Charles, is that attack surface that we just talked about, keeping that tight. So I don't Cash App anybody unless I directly know them and I have a purpose and here's the deal. So keeping that as tight as you can get it. Number two is being wary of being gullible and worrying about social engineering. And what I mean by that is, with social engineering, the more information I can find out about you, the more information I can try to appeal to you. So we have a lot going on the social side. So those of us that have all the information on Facebook, what's your password? You know, the questions they ask, what year did you graduate from high school? What's your sister-in-law's first name or your maid of honor? Most of us, you can go to Facebook and find that information. So just be cognizant and aware of that, and be cognizant and aware of the things you're doing. Somebody's calling you. If somebody initiates a call to you for something, that should be the first red flag that comes up. The first red flag to say, why would I do this? I'm calling you from Microsoft and there's a problem with your computer. Can you give me the username and password? I'm sending you an email from Microsoft. There's a problem. No. Just like we say about the IRS. They don't really call you. They might show up at your door, but they're not going to call you. But it's things like that where those things are not going to happen. So, hey, don't be scared. Be careful. I will say, too, as we as adults need to be cognizant of, is our kids and our parents and our older relatives and friends. Be very careful with them. Make sure they're cyber aware. I'll give you an example. As a fellow director I have at FedEx, his mother was called by someone saying that your grandchild so-and-so got arrested and is in jail here, and he doesn't want his parents to know. Can you send $1,000 in green dot cards? Call back when you have that and we'll give you information, but do not call his father. How many of our parents would be kind of gullible to that kind of thing? That's the social engineering aspect that we have. The information I can find out on the internet about you, then can I use that to manipulate you and get you to give me some information that would allow me to get on your systems? And you'd be surprised at how many people take the bait. Be careful. Okay. So from a technology perspective in the jobs there, you can see this is the IoT security market. You see the numbers and how fast they're going up. That's the global IT market size spend. So what does that spend should directly correlate to jobs. A lot of jobs. In security, a lot of jobs. So many jobs that we can't keep up. We can't get enough people. We can't find qualified people. So it's an excellent career. If you're passionate about it, you enjoy it. It has many dimensions. You heard Dr. Farabee talk about from law enforcement to the work I do for corporate security, all kind of opportunities, especially even before COVID, there was a lot of remote type opportunities. Now after COVID, there's an extreme amount of remote capabilities with this. So for anybody that's interested in the career in cybersecurity, please reach out to me and talk, because it is an awesome opportunity. Okay, with that, are there any questions? No questions? Come on. Sure.
What do you suggest for computers saving our passwords? Like whenever we go to AT&T account, they will already saved my password. So what do you suggest for that?
I would tell you, for me personally, you know, it's getting to the point that it's overwhelming because they tell you not to use the same password, but I am 53 years old and they tell you not to write it down. So, so what I would tell you is to, on the operating systems, especially Windows, there's mechanisms to save passwords. I really like that functionality. So I don't have to handle that password. I don't have to know it all the time. I really like that functionality. And then the fact that it can share it across machines and devices. So if you have it set where it works with the, I can't think of the browser name, with the browser there, it can work on your phone and it can work on your PC. I like that functionality because think about how many sites you got to get internet access, passwords to. I guarantee you each one of you probably have sites at probably 50 sites. And unless you do like me and always have to reset your password. But those services, there's some services also that allow that access. I really like those. Just do your research and make sure they're secure. But they use very secure passwords, some of them that are not humanly, they're not, the perfect passwords for us from an InfoSec perspective, you would hate us because it would be like, give us 25 characters. And oh yeah, we check it against a dictionary and make sure you don't use any words that are known. So some random numbers. So you have some services that will do that for you. So once you log into it, it will use those passwords, much more secure. So sure, you've got a password to get into that system, but I think you'd much rather have that one password that you have to remember than 50. Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Perry.
Yes, ma'am.
So you know that I have a heart for LeMoyne-Owen College, the LeMoyne-Owen College.
Yes, ma'am.
So a graduate from this college, what do you look for? What skills would these students have that, well, they wouldn't be students, they would be coming to work for the corporation. What do you look for? What are some things that that stand out to you?
Okay. There's the baseline requirements we have from an education perspective to get your foot in the door. Some of those are actually being lowered in some places because of the nature of some of the cybersecurity stuff and the way it moves so fast. But I will say this for me, I'm going to emphasize a couple of things, which I know some of us try to do with our kids. It's like you have these devices, you can do research, you have the ability to do research, you use that device for more than just watching videos, to do research in the areas that you want. I look for people who are passionate. So when you come and you tell me you want to do cybersecurity, and I'll say, tell me what you know about cybersecurity. For a person that's ready, that should be like, oh wow. Give me 20 minutes and I'll tell you, you know. So that passion, and then it's not like it was in the old days where these technologies, like if you wanted to work on an IBM mainframe, you had to be at a company that had a mainframe. It's not that way today. The security tools we have, just like we pay, there's a service that's free. So you can take an old PC that you've basically thrown out, you can put an operating system on it, and you can start building these systems, and you can build a network at your house using these tools that are based on the same concepts that we use in industry. So like I said, passionate, and then that affinity for lifelong learning. Because as I told you, when I started 20 years ago, this stuff didn't exist. So lifelong learning, got to be there. But just understanding, as we prepare our students, understand that we're preparing our students to get jobs and to work in the technical business world. However, just make sure we're doing a good job of preparing them for that. Thank you, Ms. Perry. Yes, ma'am.
So I rely heavily on my company's InfoSec department to keep our information safe while I'm at home working. You spoke about keeping networks separate. Could you speak a little bit more on why that's important to keep home and personal networks separate and not fully relying on your InfoSec department?
Well, nothing is totally faultless. We try to do our best job, and I think we do a very good job from a FedEx perspective in assuring the security of our assets when they're not within our network. But also realizing that when we're on networks, that's not our network. So when it comes to hacking and things like that, when you're part of the mothership on a corporate network, you got millions of dollars of firewalls sitting there defending the perimeter. I used to run that. That's what I used to do. They're there. My wife can tell you 24/7. I got the phone by the bed if there's a problem. They're all there. But we take a little computer and we let you take it home. Well, that little computer is kind of on its own, right? It's got some security there, but it's not, and it's very good. But at the same time, it's there. It's on your network. I've told you, you heard me say things about 0 days. We can't protect them all 100% of the time. Sometimes there are things that happen that makes us vulnerable. Now, as soon as we see that vulnerability, we're going to be on it and fix it. But do understand that while it's there, that's an issue. So if it's on, if it's connected to the network, things like that, that's why I said do everything you can to minimize that surface area. So I don't cut it on until I use it, unless they instruct you to turn it on for patching. And so instead of it being available 24/7, it's available that 50 hours to 60 hours you work a week. Sure. Yes, sir.
So my question was more recruitment based as far as people coming into the industry. You had you alluded to the fact that you're changing perspectives, and maybe I misunderstood, but it's how you look at the people. As long as they're coming in with equal passion or the equivalent passion for the industry. The question is, if for industry demand now, are people looking more toward the educational part plus certifications, or somebody comes in, let's say somebody's with a bachelor's degree and they have a A+ certification, as opposed to somebody that doesn't have that educational equivalence, but they've got A+, C++, network, and so on. And I'm throwing these out arbitrarily as if I know what they are anyway. But the question is as far as a recruitment tool. Thank you.
we've just had some situations that I'm aware of corporately where there have been some folks that had the skill set. Education is great. I'm going to be a first proponent of education, but there's something to be said also about talent. And when you realize possibly sometimes there's a person that has a talent, they might be a junior, they might be a sophomore, they might have started, but they didn't finish. Sometimes, hey, you've got to be open to some of that, especially with the talent you're looking at. So those are some of the things that I'm speaking to. I think the certifications help to show that you got the aptitude to pass it. I think it does not necessarily show what level you can perform at, but a lot of these things are non-traditional. So one of the operating systems, one of the main operating systems that we use from a server perspective being Linux, you can get it free. There are people that you can learn it free. It's not like it used to be where you got to go work at a corporation and pay tens of thousands of dollars to go to this class. No, you can get an old computer, you can get it, and you can get on Google, and if you work at it, you can become just as good as somebody that does it corporately. So just balancing that and understanding that, especially when we have so much need. And I've seen great network engineers and great security people. They have history degrees. So if I put up a requirement that says, okay, you got to have a technical degree, okay, I guess I'm out. So just understanding that. For those of us that can get it, get it. I'm not telling you not to do that. But at the same time, if you don't and you have the skill set, I tell you still work on getting it, but that doesn't mean that you have to sit on the sideline while you're doing it. So we all know from an education perspective that your education to me gives you a foundational knowledge and shows that you can learn. But some of these, like for most of us in the room are older, a lot of the stuff we do at our jobs today, school didn't teach us. You got to have the ability to say, here's the book. We need somebody that can do this. Here you go. So.
Any more questions? All right. Let's give Mr. Perry a hand, please.
Well, in closing, Mr. Elliott, let me say that I definitely appreciate the invitation. Thank you. And I'm always available for helping the community of Memphis and LOC. So my wife would not let me forget that. But it's a great school, and you guys have great things going on here, and look forward to continuing to work with you to expand the possibilities of this wonderful community.
All right. Thank you, Brother Perry. All right. Let's give him another hand. And then thank all of you for coming for Tech Talk Thursday. As Mr. Perry said, particularly here at LeMoyne, what we're doing is doing what we call cross-disciplinary teaching, where we have people who are in computer science taking social and behavioral sciences when it comes to criminal justice and vice versa. We're starting to work with the folks in humanities who are in English and history and who want to do filmmaking and understand technology. Because one of the other things that is tough for coming from industry is learning how to write in technology. Policies, practices have to be written, and most technicians can't write. Let me speak for myself. I'm not a writer. So you need somebody who understands it, who can put it into policy, who can write it. So that's one of the things we tell all the students. You don't have to be a computer science major, IT major. You could be an education major. Particularly in education, we need more educators who know cybersecurity, because when they go K through 12, they can teach these things. And so the Cybersecurity Center, and Dr. Ferry's, she's gone, that's one of the initiatives we have to do in order to stay certified. We have to introduce cybersecurity to the K through 12. So if you're out there, you're listening, LeMoyne-Owen is a great place to come. You're going to get, I don't care what your major is, we're going to introduce you to cybersecurity. We are partnering, and one more plug, the Student Freedom Initiative. Mr. Robert Smith, who he made headways when he paid off the debt of those students in 2019 in Morehouse. He's recently started an initiative called Student Freedom Initiative for all HBCUs. We are partnering in the last cohort. We just got licenses for all our Cisco stuff, Umbrella. So we are moving in a technological way more so than we ever have before. So again, thank you for coming. For the students out there listening, We need more students in cybersecurity, and we have a great opportunity to get a degree, and your degree along with a certificate that says National Security Agency and the Department of Homeland Security. All right, that's a differentiator. Again, thank you for coming, and look forward to next Thursday, fourth Thursday. We won't be here because it's Christmas. So look for January. So we'll have a Christmas break, and then we'll be back in January with another exciting speaker like Mr. Perry. Thank you.